Welcome to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show, a real estate investment program. Listen and learn how to use real estate to build wealth and passive income streams for you and your family. We bring you experts every day to discuss and answer your questions on everything from single-family homes all the way up to 600-plus unit apartment complexes. And now, the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Excited to be with you today. We are working on your financial freedom, and today we're talking about turning a $322,000 apartment investment into $946,000 in 2 years. That's a 262% return. I'm your host, David Ruzicka, and you're listening to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. And today I've got the pleasure of having Jeff Rohn with me, and we're going to hear his story. Jeff, so glad to have you with me today, and I just want you to kick it off. Tell us, so our listeners know a little bit about you, your background, who you are outside of real estate investing, where you're from, what life is for you.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. Yeah, my name is Jeff Rohn. I'm originally from Wichita Falls, Texas, just right down the road here from Dallas-Fort Worth. I grew up there. I came from kind of a farming, ranching background, so that's kind of my background. Although my dad was a realtor growing up, and he did build houses, but I went to my undergrad at Texas Tech University, and I went ahead and went to Texas A&M for my master's. Then I spent some time overseas. I came back and actually did my PhD at University of Florida, and then I went back overseas, and I spent a lot of my time, about 10 to 12 years, working in Asia, primarily in China, before my family and I moved back to the United States in late 2013.
Yeah, and I want to get into that a little bit. But before we do that, tell me first, what were you doing for retirement before joining Lifestyles Unlimited? And when did you think retirement would happen for you? Did you have any set number, date in mind that might take place?
I really didn't. I followed, you kind of follow your parents. And so I followed the financial planner model. You give percentage of your money to the financial planner. They invest in some investments. Also had a 401k in my old, when I worked in corporate America for several years. I had a Roth IRA that I invested in, but it was primarily traditional, mutual fund type investments that, for the most part, I, just followed the company plan or a financial advisor's advice. I didn't really think about it at the time. Yeah. I mean, but that was kind of the model I was following.
Yeah, kind of the normal thing everybody does. I mean, that's what you're raised to do. If you're, unless you come from an entrepreneurial mindset, that's kind of the idea. That's the employee mindset. And so you were vice president of food safety quality in the Asia Pacific region for a large company. What does that mean? What exactly did you do there? I think that's fascinating that you were in China and you were there for 10 years. Yeah.
So we were a large food manufacturing company, private company, but a very large company. At one point, we were the largest meat producing company in China. We basically supplied food products for major brands and mainly several fast food companies. I don't want to say the names, but you would recognize we've all probably ate there. So that's what we did. I was in charge of making sure we met the customers' quality and food safety standards, as well as the, our own standards and the country requirements that we're manufacturing in.
So that all sounds great. That sounds great. That sounds fascinating. Sounds wonderful. Except that your family, your wife, was in the United States, in Texas. And I just want to ask a question: what does traveling like that, living like that, what does that do to a marriage? How did your wife feel about that?
Well, she was actually with me in China. We were there in China, but the problem was I had to travel all across Asia. So I was on the road 80% of the time. We actually were living in Shanghai for most of that time. Mm-hmm. But, we had plants in Australia, India, all over. And, of course, I had a lot of customer obligations. So I was on the road a lot. Probably 80% of the time I was traveling.
Yeah. So back to my question then, how did your wife feel about that?
It wasn't good. I mean, in the beginning, it was okay, but as time goes on, after we had my oldest son, things I knew that the situation was not good. And the problem I had is that I had gone to my supervisor a couple of times and said, hey, I got to get out of this traveling job. I need to spend more time at home. And the answer I kept getting is, well, we're going to put you in a plant position or something that you don't have to travel. But over time, I didn't see it happening. They kept on saying the same thing, but I just didn't see a way out. So
the big trigger for you was you needed a way out. You needed a way to buy back your time so you could actually have a family with a wife that you can identify when you see her because you're around her all the time, and kids that know that you're their dad because they see you all the time. So you decided to check into real estate. How did you find Lifestyles Unlimited?
Well, I always had some interest in real estate, rental real estate, because I had some family that had some before, and I had an interest in it. My dad, like I said, he built homes, so I was around that industry. Didn't have any rental properties, but I just knew that I had to create some type of other source of income other than my job. And so I had that interest, and I had a background of some family members owning rental properties. So I just started looking on podcasts, and I downloaded a couple podcasts that I found. One of them was the Lifestyles Unlimited podcast, and I started listening to it. Once I started, it just clicked with me that this is something that would provide a way for me to learn about real estate so that I can invest and create, a different source of income, passive stream of income.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Jeff Rohn, who is with us today, he bought 4 houses while working in China, retired himself after house number 13. Stay with us to the other side of the break. You want to hear the rest of his story.
Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Now, let's get back to your map to financial freedom.
Hey guys, you're with David Ruzicka. I'm your host on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. We're talking to Jeff Rohn, who bought 4 houses while working in China and retired himself after house number 13. So glad to have you with us today, Jeff. So you found lifestyle. You're in China. You're traveling 80% of the time. You're thinking there's got to be a way out. There's got to be a better lifestyle than this. And you joined Lifestyles Unlimited, found a podcast online, and went to that financial freedom seminar, which is that 16 hours, everything about single family and multifamily investing. And you watched that. What was the big takeaway? What was the big aha moment for you from watching that financial freedom seminar?
Yeah, I think for me, I didn't have any time with my family, and I didn't have any other streams of income. So the fact that creating a way to make income, passive streams of income, so that I had the time back that I wanted, and I wasn't dependent just on a W-2 job, was key for me. And those principles and the things that Lifestyles were teaching really click with me.
That's awesome. That is great. So before you joined, you said you had 1 duplex that you had bought before joining Lifestyles Unlimited, and I'm going to ask you some questions before you answer. I want to say to our listeners, men and women, stop trying to find a way out and start trying to find a way in, because what I'm going to show you right now is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So Jeff, you're in China, and honestly, I think this is the biggest part of your story for me anyway, but in my humble opinion. But you're in China and you wanted so much to escape this crazy lifestyle that you bought real estate in Texas. And I want to ask you, how in the world did you do that? And I want to kind of walk you through it. So first, you decide that you want to get financial freedom. You've got to do this. What was the first thing you did? I mean, I'm thinking, I got to put a team together. I got to figure out what was the thought process, and how did you get from having no houses at all to I'm going to put this in action? Here's my first step.
Yeah, I mean, the first step after I took the 2-day, I was kind of on fire, hungry to buy something, and I'm from the area. My brother lived in Dallas-Fort Worth, and my dad was in Wichita Falls, not too far away. So I did have some people here that were helping me, but it was around 2012 when I started buying, and I just looked online, and I tried to follow the lifestyles principles and the things that they taught, and I was able to find a few houses. I sent my brother and my dad to go help me look at them, and I was able to close on a few. Yeah.
So the first step is you had a team. You had somebody. And everybody that's listening can find somebody. You can find somebody through an organization like Lifestyles Unlimited. We have the team set in place for you. So you had your brother, you had your dad. How did you identify the properties? You went and looked online, and how did you learn how to evaluate the properties?
Yeah, so everything I did, I found online. Lifestyles in the 2-day class, they teach you how to evaluate. They give you the tools. So I used all of the spreadsheets and the tools that were available to run the numbers, make sure the cash on cash was good, the returns were going to be what I wanted. And once I did that, I would just, spend time on the phone. I would get up early in the morning or late at night to call the realtors and talk with them. I got pre-approved on some lenders. So the first house I bought, I think I did use a lender that was with the vendor program with Lifestyles. And so I did a combination. I used some of the team members that I found through Lifestyles, and some that I just found on my own, and I had some family and friends helping me here.
Yeah. So, and those were those initial loans, were those Fannie Mae loans?
Yeah, they were all Fannie Mae loans.
So you're in China, you're doing Fannie Mae loans, you're working through the Lifestyles vendor list to find lenders. And that's one thing, folks, as you're listening, one thing I never knew before I joined Lifestyles is that there are lenders that know nothing about investment property, and they will not help you at all. They'll try to take your money, but they're not going to help you. And so you need to have the right kind of lender. A lot of times people come to Lifestyles with questions, and it's, well, you got the wrong kind of lender, and that's the problem. So that's one of the benefits. So then you went through. Were these rent-ready houses? Were they houses that had to be rehabbed before you got renters into them, Jeff?
The first one I bought, it was a duplex, so it already had renters in the property. And it had a property management company that I became to know, and the lady that ran it was really good. So she actually took over managing the properties, and they did some rehabs for me as well. But, I did all this while I was over there, and I would go to the consulate and go and sign the documents for the loan documents and all this other stuff.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so, you can do it no matter where you are. If you want to change your life bad enough, if you want to do something, you can do it. You just have to take action. So, yeah, I would go down to the consulate, I'd get all these papers, and have them signed. I had to have them notarized, and I had to have them notarized by a U.S. notary. So over there, that was about the only place. And, I also, so I just did it,
Yeah. That's so great. And I really want to make a big deal about that, because this is 2012, 2013. The world has changed dramatically in terms of technology since then. But the point of the whole story is Jim Rohn, different name spelling on the last name, says, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. And you found a way to do that and got yourself started. And I want to encourage people that are listening right now, you've got to get started. Tony Robbins says real change happens when you turn a should into a must. If you say I should get healthy, you'll sit on the couch eating Cheetos while your muscle mass declines and your weight and blood pressure increases. But if you say I have to get healthy, you'll get to the gym 6 or 7 days a week and eat right and change your life. And I love that that's what you did, Jeff, is you changed your life by actually taking action. So you did that and got 4 houses, and then you came back to the U.S. Do I have that order right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And then you
at that time, the job situation had gotten bad enough that I knew that I wasn't going to have a way out. So we decided to come back to the U.S. And but the good thing is that the 4 houses we had some income to come back to, and that was really, really key.
And you had income from those houses on day one, and as people are listening, you got to think about that. When's the last time your IRA gave you income? When's the last time your 401k gave you income? And so you came back, and then you continued in the process of buying single-family houses. How long did it take you to get to house 13? And answers, you got about 20 seconds.
Okay. I would say around 3 years. Around 2015, 16 is when I got to that level. Yeah, around 2015.
That's amazing. Folks, as you're listening, this is what you can do. Jeff retired himself with 13 houses, was able to do that in about 3 years, started it out doing it in China, increased his net worth 5 times with real estate. You want to stay to the other side of the break, hear the rest of his story. We are working on your financial freedom.
Warning, listening to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show will change your life. We will teach you how to create wealth and passive income so you can be financially free. And now, back to your host.
Hey folks, with Jeff Rohn today, bought 4 houses working in China, retired himself after house number 13. We are working on your financial freedom. I'm your host. My name is David Ruzicka. I do want to pause for just a second before we get back to Jeff. I want to encourage you, if you want to do what he did, if you want to get financial freedom and buy back your time, you start with what we call our free workshop. You go to lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com, lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com. We do this workshop multiple times a week. I teach some of them. I'm not teaching any of this next week, but you go to those. My teammates are awesome. They do a great job teaching you. They'll show you the 5 ways that we make money in real estate and the principles that we use to run our business. And if you're saying, what is my first step? That is your first step. They say, a trip of 1,000 miles begins with 1 step. Okay, I totally butchered that quote, but that's about how it goes. So I want to encourage you to go to lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com so you can get on your way to financial freedom. And so, Jeff, you get to house 13. You were doing some passive investing at the same time as well while you were doing that, or no?
Around that time is when I started investing passively in apartments, yes.
And folks, what we're talking about is a lead investor will say, I want to buy a bigger apartment. I want to buy an apartment complex, maybe bigger than I can do on my own. And I want to raise money from other Lifestyles members who are investors. And I'll be the lead investor. I'll get an override because I'm going to run the deal. All they have to do is invest. Their credit is not on the line. It's like investing in a mutual fund, except you're investing in an apartment complex, and they get the tax benefits, they get the passive income, they get the equity capture, they get the capital gains. And so you began doing that, and at one point you had, I think you said 30 houses you were investing in at one point, or is that 30 total?
But at one point I had 22 single-family units.
Okay, now I know people think, real estate takes so much time. How did you manage 22 individual single-family houses?
If you use the right model, it's really not that hard. The Lifestyles model is best product, best price equals best product, best price. So I would go in there, find a good deal, fix it up the way we fix it up, so my maintenance and repairs would be very minimal, and that would allow me to go get a great tenant. And once you have that, it's really almost cruise control on a lot of these properties. So it's not that much work.
So you're not going out to the property every couple of weeks or getting calls on the weekend because something broke?
No, even now, you'd be pressed to get 1 call a week. Maybe not. So maybe I get a couple calls a month.
A couple calls a month out of 22 houses?
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Best product at the best price gives you the opportunity to get the best tenants. You just follow the model and it works. As folks are thinking about this and thinking about, can I do this? Do I have time to do this? You follow the map. The map works really well. And even better today, I got a text from one of my tenants the other day. She said, hey, the shower head broke. I went on Amazon. I said, it'll be there tomorrow. I mean, I never went there or did anything about that. When you think about that retiring, I want to talk about that for just a second. I got to think it's amazing to get out of the rat race, because even if you win I heard a quote a long time ago, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. You're still in the deal. And so talk to us for just a minute about what that was like to actually be able to be retired. Have you ever thought about that and just thought, wow, how thankful I am, what an amazing experience this is?
Yeah, and, I still don't think that I'm retired. I mean, I have as much time as I want, and I can manage my schedule the way I want and work as much as I want. But retirement is more about creating the passive income you need to meet all your bills and then some, right? Mm-hmm. So once it's not necessarily about stopping working, although you can do that. So once I had enough money to meet all of our bills and expenses, I just had more time to do the things that I wanted to do, and mainly spend more time with family and other activities with our church and other things that we just enjoyed doing.
Yeah, it's like Dell says, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle. And I know you have 4 kids, so that's a full-time job right there, just having time to spend time on all the things that you want to do, just the fun stuff that you want to do with them, without taking into account just the dad duties that you need to do to raise them into great adults.
Yes, and that's what's critical. I think the biggest thing for me for lifestyles is it's not about the money, it's about the lifestyle. It's about being there. For me, it's important for me to be there with my kids and my family, Mm-hmm. We only have this one chance, and it goes by so quick.
Yep. So
I want to spend as much time and pour into them as much as I can.
So you went from the single family, had great success now. You've bought back your time. You're able to spend as much time as you want to with your family, and you decided to go to multifamily. First of all, why did you decide to go to multifamily? And I'm just curious, were you scared about that idea?
Yeah. I mean, it's a different model, and but originally I started investing passively in multifamily, and we had great results. I mean, we got into a lot of great investments in some apartments, and then I reached a point where I had the 22 single family houses, and I had to make a decision. Okay, what do I keep going this way, or do I move to multifamily as either as a lead or a IRO? As myself, go buy an apartment complex for myself. So I decided to kind of move that direction and go and try to buy a small apartment complex. And it was scary because I knew the single family. I knew I knew that model. I knew how to run that very well. But sometimes if you haven't, you think of an apartment complex and you think, man, that's a lot. You don't know.
Yeah.
And you can be a little bit scared, but looking back, it's been a great experience.
Yeah, the idea that it's like a 20-unit apartment complex doesn't sound that big, but it's 20 homes that people are living in that you can mess up and they can leave you. Or if you mess it up, they will leave you. But you did. You found your first deal. How did you find your first apartment complex, that 20-unit?
It took me a couple years, and part of that was just trying to find the right one for me and somewhat close to where I live and that kind of thing. But I actually found it was through an email blast through a lifestyles realtor, mm-hmm. and it came through, and I showed interest in it, and there was originally 2 or 3 buyers that were interested, and the other couple guys kind of backed out, and I ended up putting the contract to buy it.
And here's the power of Lifestyles Unlimited. I know on this deal, with single-family houses, you're going to find them through wholesalers. You'll find them on MLS. But with multifamily, it's kind of a good old boys network, and there are websites you can go to and look, but unless you have the right connections, you're going to miss a deal. And this was actually a deal that was never marketed publicly. Is that correct? Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, this was a deal that the owner brought to this Lifestyles Realtor and just sent out to the group.
Yeah, and turned out to be a really good deal for you. The power of that is, the very first single-family house I bought was a realtor called a Lifestyles Realtor and said, can you sell this investment property? It never went on the MLS. It never was listed publicly. With with multifamily, it's someone knowing that a Lifestyles realtor is going to bring somebody to the table that can close on the deal, and that makes all the difference in the world. Guys, hang with us through the break. We're talking to Jeff Rohn, who increased his net worth 5 times with real estate. You want to hear the rest of this? We are working on your financial freedom.
Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. It's time to turn up the volume and fine-tune your passive income plan so you can create the lifestyle you've always wanted.
Hey folks, glad to be with you. We are talking to Jeff Rohn, who with real estate retired himself from a full-time job in China to come back to Texas and be available for everything his wife and kids were doing. He also increased his net worth 5 times with real estate. And we really love to talk about it. It's not the money, it's the lifestyle. And Jeff, right before the break, we talked about your very first deal. You found a 20-unit apartment community. Found it because a realtor the seller came to Lifestyles Realtor and said, hey, I want to sell this property, because they knew that Lifestyles Realtors can put the property in the hands of somebody that can close on the deal. They're not going to waste time. They don't have to talk to 500 tire kickers. They can work with someone that's going to, and that's the benefit of being part of a group like Lifestyles Unlimited, is you have access to deals that nobody else has access to. And so what attracted you to this property? It's a 20 unit. Why did you decide to buy it?
The main reason, several reasons, but I owned a lot of single-family homes in the area where this property is located. And so it was very strategic from my standpoint. It's only about 20, 25 minutes from my home. Mm-hmm. And it's, like I said, very close to several of the other single families that I own. So that's the main reason I bought it. And it was a great deal. It's a single building. It's a little bit older property, built in 1961, but it was solid as far as structure standpoint. And the numbers look good.
And what was the occupancy when you bought the property?
When I took over, it was about 90%. We had to evict a couple tenants, and actually the previous owner helped me start that process. But it was about 90%.
Yeah, tell us about that. The previous owner helped you with that.
Well, he was a nice guy. I knew after doing the due diligence, there was a couple tenants there that were just bad apples, causing a lot of problems. And the owner did too. And he actually called me a couple weeks before we closed, and he said, hey, these 2 people didn't pay rent. You want me to file for eviction? I said, yes. And so he was a nice guy. We started the eviction process, and, within a month after closing, I was able to get him out of there and start rehabbing those units.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the power of multifamily is you can force the property to appreciate. With single family, it's a comparative market analysis, a CMA. Your house is worth what the average house is worth in your neighborhood. With multifamily, it doesn't matter what the property across the street sold for last month. What matters is how much money does your property make, because it's a business. So tell us a little bit about what you did to force that property to appreciate. And by the way, folks, as you're listening, we're talking about around 260% capital gain in a couple of years. So huge profits on this deal. Tell us a little bit about what you did to force that property to appreciate.
Sure. A couple main things. One, this was all bills paid property. So the utility savings were going to be a key part of increasing the NOI. So we went in there basically and we did a lot to improve the ventilation, insulation in the property in the attic. We replaced the hot water heater. I replaced several of the AC units inside the property. Mm-hmm. We added and sealed the windows, added some solar screens. A couple other things that really help with lowering the electricity bill and lowering our gas bill. Another thing we did is there was a lot of leaks on the property. Nothing had really been updated on the plumbing side and the inside. So we've gone in, replaced all the toilets, low flow toilets. We replaced all the shut-off valves, all the shower valves, and pretty much eliminated all the leaks. It did have a small pool. We did some efficiency savings there, putting in a variable speed pump, things like that just help with lowering the electricity bill. So that helped a lot. We were able to reduce our utilities for about 15%, which is a big savings.
That is a big savings.
Secondly, it was big. Secondly, we went in there and had a remodel plan. So we've remodeled to date 14 out of the 20 units. And, our average rent growth year on year has been about 10%. So we've been able to, as we've grown and remodeled, raise the rents, and that has created a lot of increased cash flow that has helped on our appreciation of the property.
Yeah, and I've seen this property, and I mean it changed from a very dated property to really just some simple accents that make a big difference on how the property looks and allows you to charge that higher rent. Great job on all of that. And from there, and what did you do to? You took some money out. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So originally, the loan I signed was when I bought the property in 2018. The interest rates were a little bit higher. My first loan was around 5% interest rates. Mm-hmm. Well, last year we went out to refinance, and I got an interest rate down to 3.6%.
Oh my goodness,
So
that is tremendous.
Yeah. So if you add up all the savings, we pulled out around $260,000 when we refinanced, and my payment is not that much more than what it was before.
You pulled
the
out.
Interest rates lowered.
You pulled out $260,000. You said.
Yes.
Were you taxed on that?
No.
Why not?
Well, it's not a taxable event. It's a cash-out refi.
Yeah.
I would be taxed at the time I sold it, but there are ways to get around that tax, with the 1031 exchange and other things. So.
Yeah, where I'm getting at that, Jeff, is it's not income. It is a loan. It is your money. You can take that and do whatever you want to with it. You've taken out all the money that you invested in the deal, and you still have cash flow from the deal. So you could take that money, and like I said during the break, you could go buy a Lamborghini if you wanted to. It costs about $220,000. You could take that money and take a trip around the world, but. And it's funny because I talked to a lot of Lifestyles members. They're very consistent in this, tend to be very conservative financially. What are you doing with that money?
We haven't. We still live in our same house. We haven't bought any big expenses. We want to grow the business, so we're focused on buying another apartment complex. I've got one under contract that I'm going to buy next month. And we want to continue to grow, and it's fun. We're having a good time, and that's what we're doing with the money.
Good job on that. That's the right answer. I knew the answer. I wouldn't have asked otherwise. That's powerful. Here's the thing, folks. As you're listening, you can't get rich slow. Your 401k, your IRA is never going to make you rich. It's a slow, prodding, year by year, over 40 years, maybe process, unless you hit a stock market crash a few years before retirement, and then you can tack on another 10 to 15 years of work. You've increased your net worth how many times, Jeff?
5 times.
5 times. Yeah, you'll never do that in your IRA. Maybe you can do it with an invention. Maybe you invent an iPhone or a Flowbee, the vacuum hair cutter, or shake weights, or you can do it with real estate. I want to ask you this, Jeff, and we're coming up close to the end. So how much risk do you feel like you took when you invested in single-family homes or even this multifamily property?
I don't think, looking back, I don't think the risk was big. If you are educated right and you know how to evaluate the property and what to look for, the risk in my opinion is much lower than just blindly investing in investments that you don't know much about. With real estate, you know everything about it and you can control it, and that's a benefit of it. With other investments, you might not know and you might not have the control over it that you want, but with real estate, you can.
Yeah, if you buy a share of Gillette or whatever stock, not saying it's good or bad, you have no control over the price of that stock, whether it goes up or goes down. You don't have any control over things that are going on around the world that may make that stock plummet. In this case, you're buying well-capitalized properties. You've got equity capture on the purchase, so you've got equity in the very beginning on your single-family houses. You're in control of the business, and you're able to mitigate that risk by surrounding yourself with successful, like-minded people. And let me ask you, just in closing, we've got about like 25 seconds or so. How much did you use your mentors and operations consultants as you went through this process?
I use them a lot. Use them all the time. I still do, even on the property we're about to buy. Even though I've gone through some experience, I still call on a lot of the mentors and the people to help me, to bounce ideas off of, to make sure that this is a good deal, and to ask questions about.
Yeah, folks, that is the key. You surround yourself with successful, like-minded people. You can retire yourself with real estate. You may be a lot closer to retirement than you think. You've been hearing from Jeff Rohn, who increases net worth 5 times with real estate. I want to encourage you, go to lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com, get signed up for the free workshop, and remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle.
The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.